everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my April TBR video. So I have 14 books that I want to read in April, and what's really funny about that is going into this next month, I told myself that I wasn't going to make as crazy of a TBR so that I could leave more room for mood reading, because I definitely have become more of a mood reader in probably the last year or so, yet I still have 14 books on this list. Like, who do I think I am that I'm actually gonna read all 14 of these books plus even more? I don't know, but I'm very excited about all of the books on this list. So let's just go ahead and get into it. I have a few books that I don't own physical copies of that I want to talk about first. Quarterback Sneak by Candy Steiner. This is book 3 in her Red Zone Rivals series. I did recently treat myself to physical copies of the special editions, so I'm very excited for those to come in. But I read Blindside, I think in August of last year, and I loved that book so much. It ended up being in my top 10 contemporary romances of 2022. I just adored that romance so much. So I'm very excited going into the rest of this series for sure. I don't really know much about this one except that it involves a football player at this university, and then the heroine is the daughter of the coach of the football team, and so he has made it forbidden for any of his players to date his daughter, so that's gonna be a fun time for sure. Next up, I have Release by Claire Kent. So this is book 2 in her space survival romance series. I read Hold pretty recently, what was it, in February, and I devoured that book. Oh my god. One of the best romances I've read this year. Like, it's so wonderful. Claire Kent is absolutely one of my favorite romance authors at this point, and I've only read 3 of her books. But there is something about her writing style that just really works for me, and so I'm very excited going into the rest of this series. Basically, each book takes place on a different planet, and there is this coalition that governs over all these planets, and it has just a very dystopian feel to it, so I'm just very excited going forward for sure. Next up, we have a couple of non-romance books that I want to read. The first one is Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. So this is a recommendation from Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life. She recently reread this book and was raving about it on her Instagram stories. And I have read Laini Taylor's Strange the Dreamer duology, and I really loved that duology. It's a YA fantasy that has a very strong romantic plot to it, and Crystal was just raving and raving about the romance in this story. This is not a romance novel, but it is, I believe, a fantasy series with a strong romantic plot as well. And I think she said that this one isn't as high fantasy as Strange the Dreamer. Other than that, I know nothing about this book or about this series, but I am here for these new covers that they released pretty recently, maybe a couple years ago. So I'm very intrigued. I take Crystal's recommendations very seriously, so I hope that I really enjoy this one. And then the other non-romance book I have on here is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. This is a gothic thriller slash horror novel that I meant to read some months back, but I just keep putting this book off. But I've heard that it has vibes of Rebecca and Mexican Gothic, and I love both of those books, so I'm very excited going into this one. I think my loan for the audiobook is coming in very soon from my local library, which is very exciting. And then I have one more book that I do not own physically that I'm excited about. That is Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey, which this is her newest release. This is also book 1 in her newest romance companion series, and I just think that this cover is adorable, but you know, it's Tessa Bailey, so she's gonna serve the spice for sure, and I'm very excited because this is another one that I think the audiobook is coming in really soon from my local library. So next, let's get into the books that I do own physically. I have a couple historical romances here that I'm very much looking forward to. First of all is Mogul by Joanna Shupe. This is book 3 and the final book in her Knickerbocker Club series. I have adored this series so far. I gave the first 2 books 5 stars, and I gave the novella in this series 4 stars. And I've heard that Mogul is a really great installment as well. This one I believe is A Marriage of Convenience. Very excited about that. I did not go into this series with very high expectations just because this is one of the first series that Joanna Shupe ever published. And so I never have high expectations of authors' early works, you know, but this series is amazing. These are just wonderful Gilded Age romances. Highly, highly recommend them. Another historical romance that I'm so excited about reading next month is Hello Stranger by Lisa Kleypas. This is book 4 in her Ravenel series. I very recently read Devil in Spring, which is book 3. And I loved it. I have given every book in this series 5 stars so far. This series and the Hathaway series are just complete comfort reads to me. As soon as I start one of these books, I just feel so cozy and like I'm at home somehow. And these are just a wonderful escape. I am just loving what Lisa Kleypas has been doing with the series so far. And there's a step back for this one. Look how pretty it is. This one's very interesting. I feel like this plot is very different for Lisa Kleypas because this one is about Garrett, our heroine, who is a female physician, and then Ethan, who was a formal detective for Scotland Yard. They were both featured in the previous book in the series. And he is a rumored assassin whose true loyalties are a mystery. For one exhilarating night, they give in to their potent attraction before becoming strangers again. That just sounds so interesting, so cool. I've heard that this plot involves a lot of action, so I'm just very intrigued for sure because this has a very different vibe from the previous books in the series for sure. Next up, I want to get back into my manga era again, so I need to read the next volume that I have of Spy Family. This is a volume 7. The 9th volume very recently came out. My pre-order is supposed to come in soon from Barnes & Noble. Very excited for that. But yeah, I've read the first 6 volumes of this series and it's one of my favorite manga series that I've read so far. It is a kind of slice of life, spy, family comedy. It's very hard to describe this series because there's so much going on, but it's all done so well. I'm obsessed with all the characters, and look at little Damien sitting on this chair. I love his character. So yeah, I'm just very excited to see what spy hijinks ensue in the next installment. And then I absolutely need to get back into Full Metal Alchemist. This is the 3-in-1 edition of volumes 10, 11, and 12. I read up to volume 9, I believe in like November of last year, and so I've forgotten a lot of what happened in the previous volumes. So I might have to skim through volume 8 to remind myself of what happened, but this is also a series that I fell quickly in love with. I adore the Elric brothers, Edward and Alphonse. They're amazing. This series is just so well written, so well paced. Every time I pick up a volume, I cannot put it down. And I'm very excited to see what this author does with the series going forward. There's 27 volumes total, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself when I finally complete this series, but I'm very excited to continue on. Next up, we have book 3 in a contemporary small town romance series that I have just been adoring lately because I finally read book 2. So that is Powerless by Elsie Silver, which is a part of her Chestnut Spring series. I did finally read Heartless and I absolutely loved it just as much as everybody else does. If you want to hear my full thoughts, I will link a reading vlog that I did recently where I just raved and raved about that book. I also discussed it in my most recent reads video if you are interested as well. But this is going to be Sloane and Jasper's story. It is a friends to lovers romance that involves a runaway bride situation and a road trip. I think I'm gonna buddy read this with Ava and Victoria, and I'm just so excited because these are just the perfect romances to gush about with your friends. Next up, we have another very exciting romance to talk about. The audiobook for this just came out today, and I internally screamed when I got the email from Audible that this audiobook was now available for download, and that is Resting Witch Face by Juliet Cross, book 5 in her Stay a Spell series. This is hands down my favorite paranormal romance series that I have ever read. I have given every book in this series 5 stars, and this is going to be Jules and Ruben's romance that has been built up since book 1. It's going to be second chance. It's going to be angsty as hell. And I am so excited. If you know nothing about this series, it centers around these 6 Savoy sisters who are witches. And this one is going to be between Jules, who is the eldest Savoy sister, and then Ruben, who is a vampire. He actually rules over at least all the vampires in New Orleans. That's where this series takes place, and I just love that vibe, of course, because I'm from New Orleans, I live here. And then Jules also has a leadership role within the paranormal community, and yeah, I can't wait. And this cover is absolute perfection. I love these colors so much and all the different designs on here. Oh, so amazing. And then I have 2 more books that I have to talk about that you have no idea how excited I am to read these. First up, we have Snow by Sophie Lark, book 2 in her Underworld series. I very recently read Ivan a couple days ago. Absolutely adored that book. That book is beloved by a lot of Sophie Lark fans, and now I finally understand why after reading it. And the reason why I am reading these 2 books now is because according to Sophie Lark's reading order, you need to read these 2 books before you can dive on in to The Bully, book 3 of her Kingmaker Chronicles series. Oh my god, I am jumping out of my skin right now because I am so freaking excited to get to Dean and Kat's romance. The way that the previous book of the series, The Rebel, ended and set up their relationship, I was internally screaming. I was dying. And so I need to get a move on and read this real quick so that I can jump into this ASAP. You can bet your butt that I have the audiobook for this ready. I cannot wait. Oh my god. So that is going to be it for my April TBR. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to tell me about books that you plan on reading in April, and I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!